sense to see if we can fulfill the need that was here in the Wiregrass. So initially, our regular farm is called Hawkins Homestead Farm. And then later on, we partnered with Bain Home Gardens. And of course, they were some new growers as well, but we kind of had the same ideas, the same visions, and the same practices. And so lots of prayer, lots of conversations, lots of plans went into forming Kith and Kin CSA, and we started in spring of 2019. Just a little bit of backstory on that. We originally were going to start in fall of 2018, but we chickened out. We were scared. We weren't sure if we could do it. And we just was like, okay, let's just pull back and just wait till the spring, because fall, you just never know with certain vegetables. So we were like, okay, let's just wait. Let's just see what we can do. And so we waited, and then we started advertising in, like, I think it was January of 2019, like, new year, new you, eat healthy, you know? And so then, like, when we got like our first customer, I was like screaming and jumping up and down. It was so fun because I was like, wow, it's cool, because you have farm customers, but this was our first CSA customer. And so I'm happy to say that we have retained like some original members. And so that's always a plus, because it helps us to know that we're doing good. Okay, so how many families? So again, we're small. I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but we farm on about 4.5 acres. So on that 4.5 acres, we run our chickens, we run our turkeys, we run, we just had a pig that we butchered for the first time this year. My husband is dead set on getting more pigs. So that's going to happen in February. And so all of that takes place on our little farm. And so we've set our member capacity at just 25 members. But as we continue to expand our new farm location, this is something that may increase, but we always focus on the quality of our produce. So I'm the person, I don't know, you guys, I have OCD. My name is Rachel and I have OCD. Okay. So I have OCD, and I'm always the person who's like, oh, that's an ugly leaf. So I'm clipping, I'm trying to make sure everything is pretty. Like, I'm funny about my pictures. And my husband is like, it's not that bad, but I've got my OCD. So I always try to focus on quality for our members. So right now we feel like this is a number that's manageable, because the farmers will eat the ugly fruit or the ugly vegetables, or the ones that have the holes and all of that. So pictures. So in the top left-hand corner, this was our squash patch, and you can see like zucchini and squash out there. Bottom left-hand corner, these are collard greens. And then off over here, the bigger picture on the right, you can see we had garlic, and I think those were collards, but that's before I thinned them out. And then you have some peas in the forefront. So how does our CSA work? Well, there's 2 seasons, one in the spring and one in the fall. Each of our seasons are for 8 weeks. We have 1 delivery day, and just 1, and that delivery day is on Monday. So members can choose also to pick up offsite, because we do have some people that come from like Blakely or, like places around here, and they want to pick up. And so we will usually just say, okay, well, where do you have to come from? And then we'll meet you at like the grocery store on our route or whatever. We'll try to fit them in so that they don't have to travel very far. They can just come right into town. And usually there's like a Publix or a Winn-Dixie or something right there that we can meet them at. And so we organize that, and then they just come at that same time every week, and we just make sure that we're there, give them their produce, and they're off. So there's 2 different options to choose from. They can either choose a half share or a full share, and members can choose based off of their family size or their hunger level. We have some members that it's just a couple, it's 2 people, and they literally have a full share, and that's a lot of food that they get every single week. But they started off as a half share, and they were like, no, that's not enough. And so literally they get this huge basket, this huge delivery, and so they eat it. So we always say it doesn't matter. It could be your family size, but it could also be your hunger level. So whatever works for you. And then again, you have some more pictures. So the top left-hand corner is, again, one of our full share baskets. The one that's below it, this one is a half share basket, and you can see with the 6 eggs are half share members. I always say that a dozen eggs is too much for them, so they just want a half dozen eggs. And then that kind of long green thing that you see in the middle, that's our lemongrass. And so we have a really cool recipe that we like to share with our members, and they like it. And so that lemongrass is something that we try to keep inside of the CSA. We try to have at least one item that we won't offer to the general public. We'll only have it for the CSA members, and that's kind of one of the perks that they get as well. But if you look at the picture on the right-hand side, you'll see that this is one of our seasonal farm baskets. And so guaranteed, every single year when the CSA starts the season, we always get people who come in and they say, hey, can we join? And we're like, no, sorry, can't join, but you can get a basket if we have it available. And so these are baskets that we offer outside of the CSA. So you don't get all of the perks, but you can get some of the produce. And we only do this if we have a surplus because we won't take away from our members. So effects of COVID-19. So this year, because we didn't know what was going to happen, we just decided that, you know what, we're not going to do farmers markets and we're just going to stay close to home, and that's it. And of course, during the summer, as a farmer, you want to go out, you want to take all of your produce, you want to make some money, some extra money, and we just weren't able to do that this year. But we had so much stuff that we had to do something, so we kind of did a poll with our members and asked them if they like to have like a quick little delivery in the summer, and they said yes. And so we had a mini summer share, and this was the first time that we did it, was this year, and it was just 4 weeks. And I don't know if we're going to do it next year or not, but you know, it works. So we were able to gain some extra revenue because we were losing so much from not being able to go to the farmers markets. And so that was something that was awesome, but that was an effect of COVID for us. Of course, we moved to contactless delivery. On a regular basis, our customers, if they're home, they come out, they ask us questions, they chat with us, we give hugs, all of that. There's all this love going on, right? Well, during COVID, there's no love. Like, we love you from afar. There's like air hugs and kisses. You know, like you blow people kisses, but that's about it. So there's no more chatting face to face. And of course, we wear masks and we sanitize between drops and all of that. And then one major change is we changed from reusable baskets to disposable bags, because what we would do is bring you your delivery in a cute little basket, and then we would just switch your basket out. So if you weren't home, you just left your basket, we brought you one that was filled up, and we switched it out every single week. So those baskets are now in our garage. That's where they're going to stay. So how do we stand out? So as a CSA, a couple of perks that you get for being a CSA member is we have a members only Facebook group, and we like to call this our mini farm community. And within this group, everyone has like complete and total access to us as farmers. So you can ask questions, you can share your recipes, you can take pictures, you can do whatever. You can, you know, be friends with us, you can be friends with the other people in the CSA group, and everyone gets to, you know, come in and just mesh. We also send out weekly newsletters. So on Monday, when you get a box or when you get a delivery, you know that you're going to get a newsletter that's going to come out later. And that newsletter is going to give you a description of what's in your delivery, recipe ideas, storage tips, all of that. We also poll our members. We have a poll that we give them in the beginning. And that poll is, hey, what's your favorite vegetable? What things don't you like? Do you have any allergies? And those things we keep track of. And we do that because we want to make sure that as a member of our CSA, you're happy and that we don't kill you. So we want to make sure if there's something that you can't eat, sorry, Alice, make sure that if there's something that you can't eat, that we don't give it to you. So, and then throughout the season, we also try to express our appreciation to our members through handwritten cards, and literally we handwrite them cards. In those notes, we try to make sure that if there's something that stands out about that person, like for example, if they're always a person who's sharing recipes, we say, thank you for this, like this is so cool. You know, or if they're a person that's kind of in the background and they don't, we just say, you know, thank you for being a member. We're happy that you're here. And then at the end of the season, we give them thank you gifts. So this year it's going to be soaps. Just don't tell them that they're going to get soaps this year, because our last delivery is actually on this coming Monday. But last year we partnered with some local candle makers here, and we had some candles that were made up that included like some of our herbs. So they got like little rosemary and lavender candles, and it was just super cool. So we like to do things like that. And it helps us to be able to support others in the community as well. So what else is offered? There are add-ons. You can get an egg share, which is 1 dozen eggs per week, 1 dozen of eggs per week. They can also, if you're a half share member, we took a poll and people were like, again, we can't have a whole dozen eggs. So for next year in the spring, we're also going to offer a half dozen extra as well. And then they can add on value added products like jams and jellies and pestos and eggs and whatever else. And we also, again, we partner with local growers to bring in items that we may not be able to offer. So like for example, if we're giving out lemons, but we don't have lemon trees, but we know people who do, you know, farmers know farmers and people know people. And so my aunt literally has this huge lemon tree and every year they fall off the tree. So I'm like, okay, do you want me to pay you? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay. So I'll come over, I'll take care of your tree and I can get the lemons. And so that just works out. And so if you know people that are like that, you can kind of like barter some deals or whatever. And I mean, we give her chickens for free. So she's fine with that because she gets to eat fresh, clean, organic chicken. So she's good. And she's like, I don't care, take as many lemons as you want. I'm like, thank you. So just whatever we can do. And then of course we offer these items at a discount to our CSA members because they're our members. And here are some of our eggs. And I struggle with this picture because it's pre-washed and I always like to make my eggs shiny, but my husband was like, it's fine, that's what they look like when you go get them. They could be worse, and he's right. So there's the egg picture. So everybody, if you farm, if you grow, if you have a garden, whatever it is, they're always going to run into some type of issue. And for us, that's no different. And so there could, like, I promise you this year, I felt like I was such an amateur because I could not grow like radishes. I was like, what is going on with my life this year? But it was just because the weather was so all over the place. It was hot, it was cold, it was wet, it was dry, it was like crazy. And so like, some people didn't get radishes because they wouldn't grow. But what we try to do in most cases is we'll overplant. And then because there's two farms, we will both be planting a lot. But it's so funny because I had the same problem and she had the same problem. And it was like, okay, well, we know what it is. Can't be us. You know, can't be us. It's got to be like the weather or whatever. And then of course, if you have bugs, like, oh my goodness, like we had these flea beetles and they like tore up everything. But we, of course, we use organic pest control methods. Again, going back to being certified naturally grown, we don't use anything synthetic. So diatomaceous earth, cayenne pepper will keep out the squirrels. We use essential oils like cedar wood and then a neem oil spray. So just whatever we can use that's organic or clean, we'll try to do that. And then a lot of times we have people that have specific requests and we will try our best to accommodate them. But this is not something that's always possible. We do give that member poll because if you're a person and we have a lady who she hates okra, she's like, I don't like it, I don't want it, give all my okra away. And so we just know that when we have okra, we're gonna give her tomatoes. She's gonna get extra something. We're not gonna give her okra. But if we can't, if we don't have anything extra, it's like, okay, member, we love you, but try your okra a different way, you know? And so we'll give her, like, for example, we had, people were grilling, putting okra on the grill, and that was new. And she was like, oh, I like it. So we'll see what happens. So if you guys want to find us, I actually run both of these websites too, and it's like crazy. So our website for the CSA is kithandkenCSA.com. You can also reach us at www.hawkinshomesteadfarm.com. My email is either info@kithandken or info@hawkinshomesteadfarm. And then that is my number. That number will reach my cell phone. If you really want to talk to me, then you send me a text message because I'm too busy. I can't talk on the phone. Like I could talk to you for like 3 minutes and that's it. But if you want to reach me, just send me a text message because I'm really good about texting, but I'm not that great about email and I'm not that great about phone calls, but I can text you all day. So that's it. That's my presentation. That's what I got for you guys.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel. I didn't say this at the beginning, but I know this may have brought up, you might have questions for Rachel. I think if y'all can hold those questions or actually drop them in the chat, we'll collect them and we'll do a sort of unified Q&A at the end. So thanks so much, Rachel. I am now going to pass it to Brennan.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good
My name is
afternoon.
Brennan Washington. My wife and I own Phoenix Gardens. We are a small farm located halfway between Atlanta, Georgia and Athens, Georgia. Our farm's 2.5 acres, and we started our farm in 2005. We have run up to a 70-person CSA off of our farm. The only things we did not, that weren't grown by us, were things that we just didn't have the land mass to grow, such as corn and field peas and that type of stuff. Uh, we Our first entry into local food systems was into farmers markets. So one day my wife was driving through downtown Lawrenceville, and we started growing more than enough food that we could eat, more than enough food than we could give away. And we just thought, what are we going to do with all this food? At the same time, my wife came to me and said, well, you know, this farming project of yours is getting kind of expensive. It's got to start paying for itself. And she happened to be driving downtown Lawrenceville, and she saw these guys with some vegetables on some card tables. And she stopped and talked with them. And that was the Lawrenceville Farmers Market. And we inquired about it, didn't know anything about a farmer's market. And we joined that market, learned how to grow at it. And next year we were approached about running that market. So in the first year that we did it, we were happy to get 100 people come through on a Saturday morning. And within a year or two, and we only had about 6 or 7 vendors, of which only 3 were actually vegetable producers, farmers. And within a year or two, we got that market up to between 40 and 50 vendors on a weekly basis. And on a good Saturday, we have 1,000 people come through. And so with the success of that, a lot of different municipalities and organizations started approaching us about how do you do farmers markets. And that led me to forming the Georgia Farmers Markets Association. But one thing that happened at the farmers market is people just kept coming to us. Do you have a CSA? Do you have a CSA? Do you have a CSA? And we didn't know what a CSA was. And so I did some research on the line and saw, you know, it was community supported agriculture. It was basically a subscription service, and that and read everything about it, that the consumers sharing the risk. And here where we're at in Georgia, we can grow all year round. So we actually had a 3-season CSA. We had a short spring, you know, we had our summer, and then we had a fall winter CSA. And unlike Rachel, we didn't feel comfortable enough. We knew we can grow the heck out of brassicas and wintergreens, and it was more forgiving in terms of you know, the farming conditions that we were working in. So we decided to do a fall CSA, and we did I don't remember if it was a 6 or 8 week fall CSA, and it worked really, really well. And then we expanded from that and did did our summers and stuff. And usually our prices would work out to about $25 a week and stuff like that. So we get like $600 for a full share for the summer, you know, maybe $200 or $300 for the short spring, and the same thing with the winter. We had some problems doing full shares and half shares. We actually tried, and I commend you, Rachel, for figuring out how to do half shares. We couldn't figure it out. So what we did was a half share in our CSA is basically you got a full share every other week. And that worked well for us, and people liked it. With our, you know, in the beginnings of our CSA, we did have some customer turnover, and and people would tell us, this is just too much food. You know, I don't cook. I don't really cook. You know, my wife would put recipes and stuff in there. But if you don't cook, you don't cook. So she would put instruction in there on how to preserve, but it's just people who didn't cook. So we lose customers because of that. So the CSA, I think we ran a CSA about 5 years, and it was really, really good. I mean, if you've never done it, for those of you on the phone who've never done a CSA before, and you're cash strapped, it's a really good way to bootstrap and self-finance your operation. But I've spoken a lot at conferences and stuff on CSA. The one thing I will say is, if you've only been growing for 1 or 2 years, be very careful about getting into a CSA, because you are asking people to plunk their money down and to share in the risk of your farm. So it's one thing when a tornado or a hailstorm comes through and destroys your crop, and you cannot provide those, a share to your customers those weeks. That's one thing. It's another thing where you don't understand your crops you're growing, and you can't fulfill the shares because of a number of reasons. One of the big things, we were the tomato and pepper people at our farmers markets. And we were big on heirlooms. Everybody came to us because we had some really, really good heirloom varieties. But you know what? If you don't have the land mass, it's really, really tough to have heirlooms, especially tomatoes and peppers, be a baseline in your produce basket or your CSA share, because they get diseases. They're going to get diseases. They don't have the productivity that, say, some of the newer hybrids have. And we learned that. We've only had to not fulfill a share one time, and that's when we had some really, really wet, a really, really wet spring and summer about 6 or 7 years ago. And just some stuff just did not make it for the length of the summer. So that's what we do. We grow a diversified set of vegetables. And if I could share my screen, I don't have all the pretty pictures that Rachel does. So let me see. Where's my, oh, is this it? I actually closed it. So give me a minute. So we have 2 hoop houses. Actually, we have 3 hoop houses. One's not serving as a hoop house. It's that we were planning to do aquaponics in that house. So we don't have hoop houses in there. But can you guys see this picture?
Not yet, man. Not yet.
Okay. Let me just come up and see. All right, so this is our newer hoop house, which we do, which right now is filled with brassicas, as you can see. It's a standard NRCS hoop house. We spent some extra money to get things like these personnel doors, so you don't have to roll up these front and back doors to get into it. We can come into it. But most of the stuff, we're graduating more to these controlled environment situations, because we can sort of get a control over how we control watering, irrigation, and protection against frost and stuff. Not everything grows in these hoop houses, but we love them. We absolutely love them. We have an older one, and we actually have a greenhouse that is heated, that we will heat only, and it has our lemon trees. And I'll talk about my work with Sarah in a minute, but I was able to bring back from the Virgin Islands some dragon fruit babies. And I really didn't think they want to make it up here. They're actually thriving more than the lemon trees without the heat. But this is the type of stuff that we do. We don't plant anything unless we can get $10 a square foot for it. And we, at our peak and our prime, we were doing 4 farmers markets a week plus our CSA. So that's a lot of work, as you can imagine. So then in 2015, we had something that changed the nature of how we look at how we deliver food to our local community. And we are strong proponents of feeding our communities. We're in Virginia. I was at a board meeting for Southern SARE, and we got a call. We went to go see Gwendolyn's mom, who lives in Virginia. I got a call from our neighbors, and our house was burning down to the ground. That was in 15. So we lost everything we had. We had to shut the farm down for close to 3 years, not so much because of rebuilding the house, because the county gave us a real hard time about rebuilding and septic system and all that stuff. I won't go into all those details. So we're still just getting back into our stride, and then we hit COVID. So one of the interesting things that COVID has shown us is that I really don't think the way we market to our local communities is going to be like it was pre-COVID. I do think so. So now we sell primarily through an online, our online website, and we share all of the farmers markets that we participate in went to online formats, and you can do CSAs in there. And the other thing, we sort of stepped back from CSAs because my wife and I are older. You know, my wife just retired, and anybody who runs a CSA, I'm sure Rachel can identify with this. It's a lot of work. You know, you take that person's money and you say you're going to have a box or a basket or a bag of food every week. You got to have it for them. So it's really hard. It was really hard to get away from the farm and stuff like that. So we wanted to step away from that a little bit. So in this new environment, we've noticed a couple of things. I think farmers markets are going to come, and Rachel was talking about being able to love on your customers. My wife's a natural salesperson. Actually, she fired me even before COVID from going to farmers markets because she said there was work that needed to be done on the farm, and why am I needing to go to her to the farmers market? So, so I sort of got fired. But just being able to meet with your customers, see how they're doing. We had kids that grew up in our farmers markets and through our CSAs that we know now, and it's very important to keep that that level of contact. But with COVID, that has changed. So that's the bad thing. That's been a really, really bad thing, that you lose that in-person customer contact with CSAs. The good thing is that this situation has showed us how we can become more efficient. You know, for those of you who have done farmers markets or done CSAs, you know, it's a lot of time involved and stuff like that. But you know, it's another thing to go to a farmers market, and some of our farmers markets allowed us to do our CSA drops there. Some of them didn't because they wanted to make sure that we weren't impacting the sales of all the farmers who were at those markets, and I completely understood that. But it's one thing to go stand at a market. You spend a whole day getting everything ready. You pretty much spend another whole day just going to market, doing your CSA shares, and then you come home and you're tired, you count your money later. That's a big difference from gathering your goods, whether they be our CSA shares or bags, taking them to a location, they hand you a check, and then you just leave. So I really think farmers are starting to see that there's value in both of those models. And so what we did is we actually had made an investment in an e-commerce site. And this is not, the two sites I'm going to show you is not an endorsement, but either myself, Phoenix Gardens, or ASAN for the two sites I'm going to show you. It's just that this is what we use. And this is a system called Barn to Door, where they manage your website, and you can load your products and people come shop. People can come shop and buy your vegetables, and you can set up pickup locations and stuff. And let me just wait for this to load. And this is the kind of stuff, these are all our vegetables. And people can come up and they can just place their orders. And like Rachel said, what we don't do ourselves, we get from other farmers, even with our farm boxes, which is what we call our CSA. We go out and get the stuff. We don't try to be an everything farm because we just don't have the land mass for it. But and I think it's a responsibility for all producers to support other producers. So if you have a client base and they're looking for something like honey and you don't produce honey, go find a local honey producer and say, look, we can work together. And we put a slight markup on it. We don't make a whole bunch of money on this stuff. Mainly we get a little bit of honey for ourselves. But they can come here, they can order, they can place, we get an email, and you can, on the back end side, you can go in and set up drop points, your delivery stuff, where you're going to deliver some. This is our farm. You can come to our farm every Friday. We have not been using this to this full potential because we've been selling out at our other farmers markets. So we do have customers though that say, hey, we don't want to go through that system, but you can set up your delivery and pickup schedules and things like that. Our farmers markets have moved to a couple of different systems. This is called local line. I am not really crazy about this system, and both local line and both the barn to door, the other, so you can set up your CSA subscriptions within those programs. I'm not crazy about this program because it's kind of clunky, especially on the back end. But you know, during the summer, I was sitting here doing my books yesterday. You know, we were getting $800 to $1,000 out of one farmers market. Well, out of two farmers markets, $800 to $1,000 out of each market. And like I said, you know, you just go ahead and you put your products and stuff in. And I really think this is going to be a thing that doesn't change with COVID. You know, I'm certain that we're going to keep this stuff around, this technology around, and we're going to use it. Now, we're blessed in that we live in an area where folks are comfortable with technology and they have access to broadband. And so using some technology like this is not a problem for most people. It may not be the same case in Rachel or Dominique's area because that technological base is not there. So that's pretty much what we've been doing from a sales standpoint. My wife and I are talking about maybe moving back into a CSA model next year and what that would look like. One of the things that we've been looking at is a CSA that doesn't lock people in. So you join the CSA, but you don't pay up front subscriptions. You know, you buy a box as you want a box, and you can mix and match your veggies, provided, as Rachel said, we have the capability to do that. So that's what I do with Phoenix Gardens. So I want to spend a couple of minutes and what little time I have left talking about my work with Southern SARE, because that will give you a regional perspective of what's going on around CSAs and local food systems on a regional and national basis. So Southern SARE stands for Sustainable Agriculture and Research Education. We are a USDA funded effort to advance sustainable agriculture throughout the United States. Although we are USDA funded, we are not a USDA agency. The country's broken down into 4 regions, and the money for each region is given to a land grant university to manage the program within that region. In our case, within the southern region, it's the University of Georgia in cooperation with Fort Valley State University and the Kerr Center, which is a sustainability nonprofit up in Oklahoma. And our main function is to provide grants for people working. We provide education grants. So any of you out there are working with farmers and looking to train farmers, we have money available for that. And I work with 1890 universities, nonprofits, and directly with farmers of color in 13 US states, US Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. So you know I'm going crazy because I'm usually stay on the road. Now I just been like a cage animal up in here. So, but what I've been hearing from across the region is that a lot of small farmers have been saying that COVID has sort of been a financial blessing to them, that they've been able to increase their sales. That's been the case for us. We don't depend on our farming income, as we've sort of transitioned. Like I said, we both retired, so we don't depend on our farming income. As long as it helps to support itself and to help us provide money for investment back into the farm, we're fine with it. But my wife's retired and I still have a salary. So we look at, and I was just doing our books the other day, and, I was really surprised at what we're doing in terms of sales. And that's what I've been hearing from farmers across the Southeast, is that this has been, COVID has sort of been a blessing in disguise. People are rediscovering local food and wanting to know where their food comes from and who farmers are. Hello? Somebody saying something? Okay. And but there's also been some thing. I've seen conventional ag now starting to creep into the spaces that we all work in, and that comes from where I'm at. Georgia's the chicken capital of the world. And so most of the chicken you go see in the supermarket, a lot of it originates in Georgia and in the Southeast. And all of a sudden there are tractor trailers pulling into neighborhoods where they have strong local food systems, and they're selling chicken. And meanwhile, poultry farmers here in Georgia, at least, and it's true for most of the Southeast, cannot get their chickens legally processed to sell anywhere. You have to leave the state of Georgia if you're growing chickens and you want to sell your chickens to either consumers or restaurants and that type of stuff. I hope my closing message is I hope that we would look at the different marketing methods that we have and really look at the situation that we are dealing with through COVID, and come up with a way on how to maintain it. If things are going well, how do we contain it? How do we maintain that that progress and continue that success? If things aren't going well, for example, in rural communities or in areas where you had problems getting your produce, especially CSA boxes and stuff like that, to your customers because of supply chain issues. Well, how do we address that? USDA did this whole Farm to Families box program. None of us were included in that, and it's just a question of how we can continue to feed the families and communities that we care about while continuing to make a viable living. So I'm not sure if I went over my time, but that's all I have.
No, that was great. Thanks so much, Brennan. And yeah, you wear a number of different hats and you wear them all very well. So thank you so much for bringing that wisdom. And yeah, you've just been through a lot, and I appreciate our opportunity to learn from you. With in the next little bit, I'm going to pass it over to Dominique and also guest speakers Maria and Malcolm to tell us about y'all's work in Birmingham.
Thank you. Alice, can you give me a quick time kind of parameter, just because I'm totally not in the moment of time. Yes.
Yeah. We can get like 20 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Dominique. This is my daughter Maria. And wave. Yeah. This is Malcolm. And we also have a family and community farm. It's an urban farm called Fountain Heights Farms, and we're located in downtown Birmingham in the historic Fountain Heights neighborhood. We have a baby farm, so we farm on a little over a quarter of an acre. And we do high yield farming. Maddie, will you take him, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And
Yay!
bye. Thank you for your grace. And so we are primarily involved with feeding our community. So we work on a sliding scale system where you're anything from a free spirit, where you might make a dignity payment or no payment for the food that we distribute and we grow, all the way up to we have another level, it's called a foodie, and that's where you basically pay the average price for a bag or a share. And then we have our friend of a friend, and that's where you're basically paying double. So you're paying for yourself and you're paying for someone else to be able to kind of balance out the need and redistribute our resources. And so we started something called the We All Eat Food Co-op as a result of COVID. We never had the idea of really being we don't sell at a whole lot of farmers markets. There was one in the last year, just because we don't have the capacity and the production to farm and sell beyond our own kind of super hyper local area. But when COVID hit, we noticed a few things about our community. One, we're just, people really had super limited access, especially in Black and Brown communities, to food, period, and especially to fresh, healthy food. And so I got together with a couple, and at the same time, I was hearing things from my farmer friends about like, man, what do we do now? We don't have these farmers markets that we're going to. How are we going to, get rid of this produce, right? And so we started a food co-op called We All Eat. Basically just doing kind of like a call, like, hey, maybe if I could get like 3 to 5 folks together and, we could all go in and buy, this, stuff from, farmers that we know. And, that way we would really help, our community and support our Black farmers and brown farmers. And we thought, maybe 5 families would get together. And now we have a membership of over 400 members in our food co-op. And really beyond, in fact, I had to kind of put a stop to it because, or, you know, like a timeout moment, because it was just so profound. And so all of a sudden we were running full speed with, you know, about 5 farmers and, you know, 400 members, and trying to fulfill the obligations. And so ours is a little bit different than a traditional model where people are paying ahead. They order on we do twice a month boxes. And so people are able to order when they need it. And we usually try and put in a share we know is going to be able to last for at least 2 weeks. And that was, kind of a twofold thing. One was trying to limit, you know, the interactions that we had during kind of that beginning shutdown of COVID. And two, making sure that, okay, at least we know for the next 2 weeks, you've got, you know, full meals for yourself and your family, and your loved ones. And so uh, we ran for a long time off of volunteers as part of the co-op to deliver the products that we had. And we originally thought, oh, well, we'll just be kind of in this downtown, you know, Birmingham area. But really the need was so big. We were going to Bessemer, we were going to Hueytown, Center Point, all the way up to Pinson, which is, you know, 20, 30 miles away, and definitely kind of outside of our idea of what this might be, which was great. And it was also just a lot to ask of our volunteers, you know, even though they were always really, you know, gracious and, you know, wanting to participate. You know, we really had to look at what was sustainable. And so we tried to start building in systems that would help kind of alleviate some of the challenges. So we got with a brother who does delivery service in our area. He has a, you know, pickup. He does like a store pickup anytime, anything you want kind of thing. And so it was a nice, perfect connection to make at that moment. And we started using some of the membership funds to cover the costs for him to deliver. We also started asking people if they were able to pick up, and we were surprised at the number of people who were like, "Yeah, of course, we can absolutely pick up." This is an example of some of our baskets, and we go. It's a pretty crazy packing. I would say packing week, just because I'm kind of the coordinator between all of the rest of the farmers to say like, okay, hey, give me your final numbers for, you know, what you have available. Can we, you know, can you meet all of these orders that we have? And then we also do all of the pickups from the farms. So we might visit our sister who's got the apiary in Alpine, or our auntie, you know, sister Simone, who's got the herbs also in Alpine, or all the way out to, you know, 100 miles out to Greene County in Alabama to pick up greens or tomatoes, or, you know, pears, or so all of that takes coordination. It takes storage, you know, thinking about what, you know, similar to kind of what Rachel said, you know, what is going to, you know, to hold and still look great. But I am also all about like normalizing ugly produce because I think that's part of the food system. And then, whatever we don't grow, in the farmer network that I have and that we've built together, we go out to either Black or Brown or Latino food distributors. So that's how we get kind of the remainder of things, or things that are like, specialty items. Like we had a vote within our co-op, and everybody was saying like, man, we really would like to get ginger. Like that's just something we really, really want as a group. Okay, well, none of us were growing ginger. Now, all of us are growing ginger next season, but none of us were growing at the time. And so, being able to go out and order that stuff outside is really, really helpful as well. I think Brendan brought up some really good points about, having like a contract, right, with your consumers and the folks that are supporting you. It takes a lot to fulfill that contract, and I can't imagine being one person or one family and doing the kind of scale that we work on. The only way that we're able to serve this many people and purchase and support these many farmers is because we do share the responsibilities. So, sharing and letting go of that portion of the delivery, and just knowing that, yes, that's going to be taken care of. Sharing the admin portion, and Brennan, he brought up Local Line. That's who we use, and they are a little bit clunky, but they're very affordable. So we're sticking with them. The other thing that Rachel said that really resonates with me all the time is I like when people write me handwritten letters, and they wrote me a letter. So they won some loyalty from me. But putting in those systems that we didn't have before, so that we didn't have to have a volunteer, at 2:00 in the morning trying to figure out, what is the best route to get to 87 people in the same day. So those are the kind of things that being able to share through a co-op system versus, a single person, have really benefited our operation. We, one of the things that during the breakout session early on, that Elizabeth brought up, because she also has a CSA, or was working kind of through a market CSA, were some of the challenges that we had around being able to accept federal benefits, right? Like SNAP, EBT, and food vouchers. And one of the things that we can't accept, because we get our produce from a multitude of different places and a multitude of different farmers, is we can't accept the food vouchers. And so that really limits the folks that we can serve. The other thing that we've had a really hard time with is EBT and how to accept SNAP benefits, because we have people who would love to use them, but they can't use them in advance. They have to pay day of and pick up the produce the day of. And so those are the kind of things that, or the challenges that I think we face, particularly in our area, but also with our customer base. And something that I think Brennan touched on a little bit, but I think that is really important to kind of re-highlight is that it's not necessarily a competition, between farmers, and that's kind of a place that sometimes we can get caught into. But when we have that collaboration and we all know what our kind of niche is, right? For me, my niche is definitely, Fountain Heights community first, BIPOC community second, and then kind of everyone else who wants to support third. And finding that space has really made it so open up for other farmers who don't have a focus in my area. So I think that there's a lot to be said for carving out and being really specific about who you want and intend to serve, and then really having kind of a laser focus as you move forward on, okay, so how do I meet the needs of this specific population? I was going to show some of the local line stuff because before we used, and if local line is not for you, that's fine. I'm sure, there's other back end kind of support systems, but I can't say enough about how this just freed up, at least a good 48 hours for me to be able to track inventory, make a pick list, pick up locations, routes, all of that stuff. It was really an investment. I wish I would have done it sooner. Off of spreadsheets and MapQuest maps before to do delivery routes, which got us there in the beginning, but like I said, definitely wish that I would have invested that sooner. Oh, Brennan's saying that I have to document where it's from. Okay, well, school me, sir. Yes, because it's I think it's important to be able to those programs, especially for my community. So yes, let's talk more about it afterwards because I'm very interested. So I think that that's probably the gist of my spiel. We, because our farm is a community farm and has always been rooted in the community, and with the idea that this is who we're growing for, there's always been a mandate for us to be able to also continue to provide things for our community. So we try and work out a system within the food co-op so that every 2 to 3 baskets that someone purchases or shares, that means a share for someone who can't pay. And so that's how we kind of even out the cost of a particular basket, and it really just kind of depends on what's in there. The other thing I really wanted to highlight was I think both Brennan and Rachel talked about kind of bumper crops, and we had a bumper crop where we were putting like 6 pounds of jalapenos in a share, and we were like, here's your mini peppers, and there's not some people do not know what to do with 6 pounds of jalapenos, and that's real. So we were also sharing recipes and talking about ways to use them, but also talking about ways to preserve food, right? Because with COVID, I think it was just kind of a highlight that reminded us all that our food system is terribly broken, and that the things that we took for granted in being able to go to a store and find what we need whenever we needed it or had the money to purchase, that wasn't always going to be the case. And so we really try and encourage people into practicing some home provisioning when possible, even to the point where, if we don't have it, if they don't have the means or the knowledge or the desire to preserve what they're doing, we offer that to them as a possibility. So these, this is an example of, some pears that we preserved, but making lots of jams and jellies and salsas and just all of the things, just to remind people that it's nice to have something put away for those times when the grocery store is empty. Fountain Heights Farms has a website, and you can learn more about our mission to meet the community needs for healthy food, to work towards flexible self-guided employment through agriculture, and then also making sure that the folks that are teaching and sharing and reintroducing and remembering this knowledge are reflective of our own community. Our website's fountainheightsfarms.com. I would really love to talk more and maybe share more about some of the other avenues for income. So I don't know if I can call you out, Brennan, to maybe share some of that information around SNAP and food vouchers. And I don't know, Rachel, have you had any experience with that?
So we, as a farm in our CSA as well, could accept EBT. Our farm does accept EBT. And I think somebody put in the chat that it was a difficult process, but it wasn't for us. We went to a farm meeting that it was being held in Montgomery. And literally they had the EBT representative on site, and you just came with your paperwork and he signed you up right then and there. And then we got our machine in the mail. There was actually a program being ran where you could get the machine for 2 years without fee. And so literally, if people want to pay by EBT, they would use our phone number, because of course you can't purchase things with EBT online, but they would use our phone number and they would say, do you have this, or can I order this, or whatever it is. And we have a machine that we just bring to you. Now, in the age of COVID, we would still use it, obviously, but we would be like mask or whatever, since you have to be in close proximity to people in order for them to use the machine. But I take that machine with us when we go to farmers markets. And the way that the vouchers run in Alabama is that you have to be at a state-ran farmers market in order to accept the food vouchers. Because I've had people contact me directly and say, hey, I have these vouchers, can we just use them with you? And I'm like, no, you can only use them at the farmers market. So I wish that was a little bit different, but that's been our experience.
Rachel, when you were saying you guys had a pretty easy process to get set up with EBT, I know somebody in the chat, or maybe one of y'all said that it was hard to, or that you couldn't use EBT for CSA, like advance payments. Is that something you have found, or do you have a solution for that?
Well, that's true, because the way that it was explained to me, and you have to go through this training for EBT, is like, if they're going to purchase something, it has to be at the time. So you swipe your card, I give you your items. Now, we would always 100% welcome anybody who wants to use EBT, but they wouldn't be able to pay in advance. So what we would do with them is they would have to pay on a weekly basis. So you'd have to be home so that we can bring our machine, you can swipe your card, and then we can give you your produce. So that's my understanding of it, but we haven't had anybody, I wish they would. We haven't had anybody that uses EBT, but if we could get somebody, it'd be great.
Hey, Alice, this is an issue that ASAN can probably work on with the cooperation of NSAC, because from my understanding, they changed that in the last Farm Bill, that you were not prohibited from purchasing CSA shares with your EBT card. I don't know the full particulars. We stopped accepting EBT, after we had a fire. But I know for a fact that came up in the last Farm Bill. Maybe you, and the folks at NSAS could do a little bit digging to get some clear explanations for your folks.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like some low-hanging fruit for sure. That's great that they changed that. Thanks, Brendan. Were there other questions? I know, I saw a little bit of the chat. There were some questions, and just y'all kind of working out, how to get set up and how to use EBT and vouchers. Are there other uncertainties or discrepancies about that? I think it's worth spending the time on.
Well, I would like to address Dominique. So Rachel explained, it's crazy how these federal programs are administered differently, not only from state to state, from county to county. And the conspiracy theorists in me think there's a reason for that. But Dominique, to your particular issue, so Rachel explained that it can only be accepted at state farmers markets. So I understand that, because ours could, in Georgia, they were only done at the county health departments, and basically when people came up to pick up their WIC checks and stuff like that, and they would set up a market there. But in terms of you getting food from another farmer, you can do that, and they should have had a training program about that. I know we had it here in Georgia. The main thing you have to do is have a receipt from that farmer stating that you brought the food from them, and have an audit trail that they can go back to say, okay, you did buy this from a local, especially, and it has to be a local or an Alabama farmer, that you brought it back. But I'm just curious, did they even do any training with you guys about the whole voucher system there in Alabama?
I'm not sure about, if they offered trainings beyond what was accepted at farmers markets. That was a training that I went to, and they were very clear about, you can only accept, these vouchers, like Rachel was saying, at this specific farmer's market. You can only accept, they did a double bucks program also at a farmer's market. But it would just be, it would be awesome. And that's something that, I need to definitely look deeper into and see, what the restrictions are. But at the time that we did the training at the farmer's market, they were like, it's specific to you and your farm, and bringing outside produce from other farmers was prohibited. That could be a Jefferson County versus another county. I'm not sure how they change, county to county. That also brings out the conspiracy theorists.
Okay, well, that's another thing for Alice and I to work on because, you know, a lot of my work now is advocacy. And, you know, we had a class where they actually spelled that out. And when my wife did those voucher markets, you know, she made sure she had those receipts, for example, for corn that we couldn't, that we didn't grow ourselves. So, you know, I just think if it's a federal program, it should, the regulations should be across the board for everybody. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And I'm so glad that this stuff like comes out when we all get together. Because yeah, you wouldn't know that there was any discrepancy there. So yeah, Brendan and I'll get on the job. We'll report back to y'all. One question I would love to ask y'all is around pricing. It's just, I mean, I think that pricing is hard even if you are just selling at farmers markets and selling by the item, but I think it becomes even more difficult when you're, you know, selling a box in advance and maybe don't know exactly the mix of what goes into that box. So just, I'm curious to hear from each of y'all kind of what process you all use to determine the price for your boxes and sort of what the worth of what goes into it is, if you have a process for that.
I can go. So we kind of based our pricing off of a la carte items. Like if you were going to buy like a pound of greens or like 2 pounds of greens, and then we give you a little bit of a discount off of it. And so then we built our CSA shares off of that. And so if you're a member of our CSA, you pay $450 for 8 weeks for a full share, and you pay $250 for 8 weeks for a half share. And so depending on what end of the spectrum you're on, you're either like, oh, that's really cheap or that's really high. But it just depends because we get feedback from all over the place. But we're the only CSA in our area. And so we had to make it for where it was profitable for us. And because we're delivering, there's a gas cost. And then there's, you know, of course, there's labor and there's everything. So that's how our pricing structure works.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, we do something similar, just partially because we buy so much from other farmers. But we do a couple things, and we've made this agreement amongst both the farmers and the co-op consumers, is that we pay farmers a fair price that they're asking for. And so that's just kind of a given. And, you know, all of our farmers have been, you know, very, fair with how they're pricing things. And usually it's per pound or, you know, per bunch or whatever. It's the way that Rachel has it built out, like her mind must be so amazing, because that would be so scary to me to be like, yeah, $450, get it done. I can't even wrap my head around that. So, and then we have agreed with our members that a full share is not going to be more than $50, and a half or a small share is not going to be more than $35. And so, you know, we do the math to make sure that stuff meets in the middle and build that other, you know, kind of free or subsidized box in with the price of the, you know, either 2 or 3 boxes depending. So that's kind of how our pricing system works.
We sort of do the same process that Rachel and Dominique has mentioned. We just look at what our costs would be. We've always struggled, well, how do we make that available to a lower income client? You know, once again, we're fortunate. We live in Gwinnett County, Georgia, where, you know, a lot of people here are fairly affluent. So how do we take the money that people are paying for our boxes, and how do we distribute food and make it more affordable for people who don't have that money to put into it. We haven't figured out a way how to do the boxes. What we have done, however, though, is help to subsidize things on the farm. So, for example, when you look at, for example, school trips, and I found this out just from doing our CSA and our farmers markets, a lot of black and brown children can't go on school trips because that costs money. So if they want to go, a lot of farms charge you to come visit them. You know, I know a farm right up the road is going to cost you $10 or $15 a kid. So we don't charge them for that. And then we make sure that they go home with food and stuff. I don't know if that's the ideal answer. But in terms of pricing our boxes, we do it the same way that Rachel does. You know, the issue for us is how do we support the least among us, you know, as we receive money from those better off clients, how are we supporting our community? And that's been the way that we've tried to do that. So, you know, there's a program here called Gangsters to Growers. It's by Abby Henderson in Atlanta, and they take young at-risk youth who either been involved in a gang life or just had problems with law enforcement, and they are teaching them stuff like green jobs. They're working with hobby shop, agriculture, and they came here and helped us build a high tunnel. So we were able to provide some, you know, they were getting paid through that particular program, but we were able to tack on a little bit of money on top of that, as well as provide food for them. So that's what we're doing.
Well, thanks so much, Brennan. I have maybe one more question that I'll throw at y'all before we have to wrap up. You know, we sort of started this talking about like, all right, all of these are different strategies to kind of build that connectivity with your customer and sort of like make it, you know, as sticky, I guess, as possible, you know, sort of really deepen that connection. I know Rachel spoke a little bit to, you know, like a Facebook group and stuff, but I'm just curious to hear from y'all kind of all the many different ways that you communicate with your customers or your members, and sort of what strategy, like how do you approach that communication? What's your sort of philosophy, if you have one, about how to be in touch with them?
Well, for us, I feel really fortunate because I just get to hang over the gate and I see, you know, Miss Vera, Miss Hamill, and Miss Rose, and Mr. Party, you know, and they walk up and down the street, or they visit the farm, you know, so that's a really nice, you know, space, you know, and a part of a pro of having an urban farm. You know, for folks that live further away, we have a Facebook group where we're doing a lot of sharing and you know, kind of community building, similar to Rachel, where, you know, folks are posting like what they made with their box, and, you know, kind of gets a little competitive. You know, my food is, you know, this recipe, you know, but you know, all also like very you know, very cooperative and sharing. And then, you know, with the farmers, I think that's probably the relationships that maybe take the most work, just because we're all so busy, you know, that it really takes that extra time to, like, you know, I need to go to the farm and you know, spend time with folks, you know, even if it's like, okay, we're picking weeds and talking business. That's seems to be the way that it works best for us, for community building.
Rachel, Brennan, y'all got anything to add?
So I kind of already spoke to it, but that Facebook group is like direct access to your farmer, because not only do they share, but we share as well. And we say that we are CSA members too, because when we pick for our customers and our members, we pick for ourselves. So whatever you're eating that week, we're eating it that week too. So we try to make sure that, you know, we share. Like this past week, we just had collard greens. And so I made a post and I was like, what did you guys do with your collard greens? And I, you know, we didn't make ours like in a typical way with smoked meat in the pot. We kind of sauteed them and we threw some onions and some peppers in there and do some feta cheese on it. And it was like the bomb. So just different ideas, different ways to do different things. But yeah, so that Facebook group is like direct access to your farmers. And then people know, like they can text me and they can say, hey, Rachel, blah, 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 or whatever. And then like our newsletters and just everything. So they have direct access to both I and our farm partners.
Well, this is more my wife's purview. My wife is a social butterfly. So, you know, Rachel, you know how you said you didn't like talk on the phone? My wife will spend time on the phone. Actually, she just went back to work. She took a part-time job on her work. My wife's done customer service for 30 years. And she just loves talking on the phone. But she will just go into, if we're in the supermarket, she will just start chatting up somebody and talking folks, and then the farmer will come into the conversation, and she meets people like that, you know. And I do the posting on Facebook, and we get a lot of, you know, people contact us through the Facebook, but a lot of our work with gaining and maintaining our customer service has been through Gwendolyn's just personality and people talking to her. You know, she had a someone who does high-end meal boxes for people, not like a subscription box like Blue Apron or anything like that. She just posts a menu for folks once a week, and they can order. And so she wanted to buy some vegetables for us. And so Gwen started talking to her. Next thing I know, we got to process chickens for her mom and dad because they got some chickens that they don't want to they don't want to keep anymore. So you know, that's the one thing I miss about not having a CSA pickup and not being able to do in-person farmers markets, because you really lose that personal trust. But we don't do too many newsletters. A lot of our stuff gets because we've been in business so long, a lot of people know us. But it's really important to do the stuff that both Rachel and Dominique has said, to really somehow have that connection to folks, especially in the age of COVID, because you never know how people are doing. You never know what their mental state is. You never know if somebody's going hungry right now, you know. You never know. And, you know, that's the type of outreach that we try to do. And like I said, my wife handles that more than me. I got fired from doing customer service.
Yeah, I think Brendan's done any of this. Yeah, and wow, I think, yeah, what you're saying, I mean, not only resonates with me, but I've heard it a bunch on all these calls, just sort of like, even as we sort of could talk about increasing kind of the points of connection and delivery and internet and these interfaces and stuff like that, it's like the points of those like real human connection have been struggling. So I know, yeah, we're all looking forward to being back at a place where Rachel can hug on her drop-offs, and we can, yeah, just get back to some of that. What feels like, yeah, the real human connections are what I feel like is at the root of this movement, at least for me. So thank y'all so much. I want to start with, yeah, just like big round of applause for the three of y'all, and just big appreciation for y'all's expertise. I know it's hard won in a lot of cases, and being willing to spend some time with us this afternoon sharing it. I want to do a couple of quick, just like housekeeping kind of announcements. One is that we are in the final couple of days of the forums. We've got a couple of really awesome sessions still lined up between now and Sunday, and I want to shout those out. We've got a closed huddle tonight for Black folks, Indigenous folks, and folks of color. So that's from 6 to 7:30. We have a roundtable tomorrow on like growing and mixing your own livestock feed for folks that maybe want to internalize some of those costs for producing livestock. There's a youth huddle tomorrow afternoon, a social and dance party tomorrow night, which I hope to see some of y'all on. And then Sunday, we'll wrap it up from 2 to 4 with our sort of final campfire session on the solidarity economy and sort of how we cooperate and link ourselves together to really build the world that we want to see. So if you haven't read up on those, I'll drop a link in the chat real quick where all the session descriptions live. But yeah, I hope to see some of y'all on those. Also, I want to invite y'all to join ASAN. We're a membership organization, and being a member is really part of sort of taking that step towards like being a part of this community that we're trying to build. So would encourage y'all. Yeah, thank you, Matthew, for dropping the link in the chat to go and join, or if you're already a member, renew, or if it's the holiday season, if you want to sponsor a friend to join as a member, we would love to welcome any and all. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I'm actually sitting in as moderator today for Kayla Rolling from Eat South in Montgomery, who was to be the moderator. She got super sick earlier today. And so just want to give her some big love and appreciation for all the work that she put in to coordinate this session leading up to things and bring it to fruition. Lastly, Matthew, if you could launch a poll. We've got just a real quick poll to kind of gauge, what you thought, how we did. Would love if you could complete that. And if you've got any more like kind of qualitative thoughts to share, feel free to private chat them to me or to Matthew. We'll leave the session open for a little while after 4. And then, yeah, with that, I just want to give another.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know real quickly that it's saying that I'm logged in from another device, and so I can't do the poll. Maybe do you have access to the poll? Yeah, it's going to let me do it for whatever reason. Is that showing up for y'all? Okay, beautiful. Thank you. And yeah, just another really huge thank you to the 3 of y'all and to Matthew. Panelists, just like big thanks for sharing y'all's wisdom and spending time, and participants, thanks for making it rich. So hope to see y'all soon. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Matthew, I think that you are can you stop the YouTubes? Actually, we could